Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. This is one of the first episodes in a series that I plan on putting out about Diablo 2, but specifically about each character. So this one in particular, we are going to start with one of my favorites, which is the Paladin. All right, so I have created a couple test characters here, specifically for the purposes of going over the characters and playing around with various attributes and ways that the characters could be built. I have no intention, and let me say this right off the bat, I have no intention of actually telling you how to build your character. What I hope to do is to present to you the options, show you all the pathways, and then you can make up your own mind. I'm going to give you ideas. I'm going to maybe, plant little seeds, but I'm not going to just go, this is how you build your paladin, and this is the piece of gear that you want to use in your main hand slot, and this is the piece of gear you want to use in your hat slot, and this is the piece of gear you use in your shield slot, and this is the piece of... I don't like doing that. I feel like character builds are very personal, and people like to build the characters how they want them to be. And I've never been one of those people that has followed guides or even made guides. So what this is going to be is this is going to be an introduction to... and this one will be the introduction to paladins. So first off, we are going to start with the runes. All right, so this guide is under the assumption that you were just starting the game. You have been playing for maybe, 20, 30 levels, and you have found these basic starter runes. You'll notice that we have a fairly common set of runes here. You will find these just about anywhere through Act 5 normal, maybe into Act 1 nightmare. They're not very far into the game at all. I have here the Am rune, the Dol rune, which is probably the highest level one, the Eld, Eth, Hel, Ith, Nef, Ort, Ral, Shale, Tal, Thal, and Tyr. So one of the things that you could do with runes is you can socket them into pieces of armor and make special rune items. So this one right here is a Ancient's Pledge, and as you can see, it uses three very common runes, Ral, Ort, and Tal. And this one right here is an empty one. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to create something. So a very common shield that is used for a lot of the game, rune word wise, is you find a two-socket shield, a good one. You don't have to necessarily make it out of a tower shield. It can be any two-socket shield, that fits what you want. In fact, if you can find a superior one, that would probably be nice too. So what you do is you grab your Shale rune, and then you grab your Eth rune. And of course, if I do this wrong on camera, you guys can laugh at me. I'm pretty sure it's Shale Eth. All right, and so now you see we have a Rhyme Shield, which is 40% faster blocking, 20% increased blocking rate. Regenerate mana, all resistances 25, cannot be frozen, which is excellent. 25% better chance of magic items, etc. This is how you can take your gear and you can, customize it to your character. Runes are just one way you can do that. You also can customize your character by finding specific pieces of gear. Like, for instance, we have here a Sanders Taboo. We also have a Biggin's Bonnet. We got Sanders Rip Wrap, nice little run boots. All this gear can be used, by any character. It really doesn't matter. You can just slap them things on there. Now, this one right here is an ethereal item. And the reason why I picked this up is because I wanted to show you guys and gals an item that you might not necessarily use yourself, but you would probably want to use on a mercenary. All right, so this is a prime mercenary item. Now here's a set item which also has +1 to all skills. It's rather low, it's level 6, although it does have a very high strength requirement. So speaking of strength requirements, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our character's stat panel. This is the first thing that you're going to want to do when you're building a character, because you need enough strength to be able to actually do something. All right, so the short story. Let's do the short story first. The short story is this. You get enough strength so that you can put on your equipment. In general, you don't build strength higher than what your equipment requirements are. So for instance, I have a Saigon's shield here. So if I wanted to use a Saigon shield, I could put 75 points into strength. However, let's say I had something that increased my strength. So for instance, I have a +5 to strength pair of boots. And if I put on Sanders Taboo, well, no plus strength there. I thought there was a set bonus. All right, so let's just go ahead and start slapping on some gear real quick. Just whatever we can fit in our slots. This is a very easy to get lifesteal ring early on, 6% lifesteal. Lifesteal is very important to melee characters in general. So if you do plan on building a melee character, tend to get yourself some form of lifesteal, maybe in advance, or as you level up, find something, some way of stealing life. Say on your weapon, on your amulet, on your rings, even if it's on a pair of gloves. All right, so now we have a couple items equipped. Let's go ahead and tack on some strength. So let's say I want to use this Saigon's Guard Tower Shield. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my Saigon's my strength up to use Saigon's. Alright, now notice if I take off my Sanders Rip Rap boots, Saigon's turns red. Alright, and the reason why this is because Saigon's requires 75 and Sanders is giving me 5. So if I want that shield, I'm going to have to put either 75 points in or find another way to get those strength points. Now, another very interesting set of boots is the Goblin Toe plated boots. It has an effect known as Crushing Blow. Crushing Blow is a very awesome effect which will deal percentage-based damage. Percentage-based damage is like this. So imagine you have a monster that has 1,000 health, all right, and Crushing Blow triggers, and you subtract 25% of his health away. He now has 750. Now, you hit him again, and you trigger Crushing Blow again, so now it's minus 25% again, but from the 750, so it's 187.5. And this continues every single time it triggers. It's 25%, 25%, 25%, which means that even if he had 10 health, and Crushing Blow triggered at 25%, it's only going to be 7.5 health out of 10. You see what I'm saying? So Crushing Blow is a very interesting ability because when a monster has amazing amounts of health like this, and you hit him with a 25% Crushing Blow, you can do that much damage, right? But when a monster has this much health, and you hit him with a Crushing Blow, when it only has this much health and you hit him with a Crushing Blow, you're only doing that much damage. So Crushing Blow scales downward with the monster's health, essentially. So as the monster loses health, Crushing Blow does less and less, which makes it very, very useful for certain characters, like Zealadins, melee characters in general. It has a reduced effect on bosses. I believe it's 12.5% on bosses. So like for instance, if a boss had 100,000 health and you hit him for a Crushing Blow, which would be like 12.5%, that's only 12,500 as opposed to 25,000 that would be on a normal monster. All right, so back to the stats. You've got your strength up to the point that you need it, so that you can equip your gear. The next thing that you're going to do here is you're going to consider the fact, do I want to use a shield? All right, so on this particular character, I am. And if you are wanting to use a shield, what you want to do is you want to get your block rate up to at least around 70%. 75% is the cap. So for instance, here you see my block chance is 8%. So I'm going to go ahead and drop 10 points in here. And you see my block chance has gone up to 14. Now it's 19, 25, and so forth and so on. So we're going to go ahead and get this up to 75% so I can show you where that lands. Okay, we're at 71, 74, 75. So we camped out at 147, and of course if we take off these boots, we drop. Of course we no longer have a shield on. Alright, hold on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so you see we went down as soon as we took off Sanders. So if we want that to be a solid 75% without any buffs, we're going to have to get that up ourselves. Now granted, depending on what gear you're going to use at cap, that's going to be up to you. So for instance, on this Paladin, we are looking at 147 dexterity to cap out our block chance, block chance is very important to keep your character alive. Next, what we're going to look at is your vitality. So vitality is probably the most important stat for all characters in the game, with the exception of energy shield sorceresses. Energy shield sorceresses are probably the only characters in the game that will build energy instead of vitality. And the reason for that is because they're actually using their mana pool as their health pool. And their mana pool can actually give them even better stat for stat than their health pool. The reason is because if you cap out energy shield and telekinesis, the way energy shield works is it's a 1 to 2 ratio. So for every, let's say, 100 points of damage you take, you will actually absorb that as 200 points of mana. So it multiplies it by 2, which is bad. But if you cap it out, it actually works the opposite, and it multiplies it by 0.75. So you end up with only 75 damage for that 100. Now, this allows you to build very interestingly on sorceresses, but this is not a sorceress, this is a paladin. So we're going to talk about the paladin itself. You're pretty much going to ignore energy unless you are a very mana-heavy user. And even then, a lot of the times you can get that mana, energy points, mana steel, various things like that will allow you to sustain your mana in ways where you will not need to put any points into energy. For instance, this one here, this shield here has regenerate mana plus 15%. There's also items that have a damage taken goes to mana. So like every time you take, say, 100 damage, 10 of that 100, so like it would be 10% of that mana, of that damage goes to your mana pool. So you get hit by for 100, it goes straight to your mana, fills your mana up 10 points. On top of that, like I said, you have mana steal. So there are a myriad of ways you can restore your mana. On paladins in particular, they have an aura called Redemption. And Redemption actually consumes bodies to restore life and mana. That is actually an effective way to restore keep your mana pool full when you are a Hammerdin or a Fist of Heavensdin. These two are skills that are not melee, so you won't be able to use mana steal with them. You will, however, be able to use things like mana regeneration, damage taken goes to mana, and of course, Redemption. Now, the Paladin is one of the most interesting classes when it comes to the utilitarian nature. Paladins have, of course, 2 entire trees of auras, and almost all of these auras affect everyone within your group. And I say almost all because there are some that do not. So, for instance, Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, Holy Shock, Sanctuary, these are the main ones that do not affect anyone else but the Paladin. Then we have ones like completely defensive auras, so like the ability to increase resistances for all players nearby, ability to increase individual resistances. You have ability to increase defense, run speed, and stamina recovery. We've got meditation, which increases the mana recovery for you and your party. Now, I've never found prayer or meditation to be very effective. And honestly, not really cleansing either. They're probably the 3 least used Paladin auras. Now, here we have an entire tree of offensive auras. Now, offensive auras include things like Thorns, which will return damage back to the enemy. We have Sanctuary, which actually damages undead. And the main problem with this is Sanctuary is not that it doesn't work. It actually works very well versus undead. The problem is it only really works on undead. And this is the problem. So there are regular monsters, there are demons. So basically, there are like 3 types of monsters in the game. And it only works on one of those 3. So it's very ineffective versus demons and obviously normal mobs. We have Conviction here, which is an amazing party skill. Conviction brings down the resistances of all monsters within range by a rather large amount, and their defense. As a party skill, it's probably one of the best. In fact, it's so sought after that there actually is a pole arm that has that effect on it that people will put on their mercenary. And the reason why they put this on their mercenary is because it allows them to have that wonderful conviction effect. Like sorceresses, for instance, who may want to kill monsters in hell, and they can't because maybe they have focused completely onto the cold tree or the fire tree, and they're monsters that are immune to cold. Well, conviction can actually break those immunities. Now, on this side of the tree, we have our melee damage skills. So we have Might, which is pure physical damage. That's all it gives you is physical damage and nothing else. It's actually a very high amount of physical damage, but it does not give anything else. We have Blessed Aim, which is specifically for attack rating. Hopefully, you will never really need Blessed Aim for much. If your party is having trouble with attack rating, it's probably going to be a temporary problem, something that they will eventually fix with better gear. Then we have Concentration. Concentration is a lot like Might, but it also allows you to not take interruptions very easily. So, as you can see here, it says, when the active, the aura increases damage and decreases the chance that an attack will be interrupted for you and your party. I found that chance uninterruptible to be very, very nice. It's also one of the best skills for party, and it's the only skill that increases damage for Blessed Hammer. Might, Fanaticism, neither one of those will increase damage for Blessed Hammer, only Concentration does. And there's a caveat, it only increases the damage for Blessed Hammer at 50%. So for instance, if this says that it increases your damage by 60%, for Blessed Hammer it's only 30%. And this continues the entire way up till max. Fanaticism is an amazing skill because it increases your attack speed. And attack speed is just something that you really, really like. But if you notice here, it has different levels of damage. It has one for your party, one for you, and then attack speed and attack percentage. So Fanaticism is probably the least party effective skill in terms of damage, but it does give your group the extra attack speed. So here we have, 3 choices, and they can all be stacked one on top of each other. So one paladin could be running Might, one paladin could be running Concentration, one paladin could be running Fanaticism, and you could just be rickrolling everything you come across. Now, let's move on to these. So Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, and Holy Shock are some amazing skills. They are basically pure elemental damage added on to your attack. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab... Let's go ahead and put 1 point into each of these. Now what I've done is I've given myself 76 points, which is the exact number for level 65. A level 65 character is probably about where most people will end up before they start to realize things will get quite difficult. And let's see here. I'm just going to shove some of this gear on me. Grab this war sword. Doesn't really matter.
Good evening.
And let's go grab a merc too. Why not? Let's go into hell. Might as well grab a merc from Act 2. Now, granted, these are not the best mercs. The nightmare mercs are actually the best because they have the better auras. But what we're going to do is we're just going to grab one of these for right now. Because these are the higher level ones. And as you see here, I have an interesting little Razortine Fuchsia, which I've upgraded from a Trident to a Fuchsia. The reason why this is interesting is because it has negative target's defense, lifesteal, slows target. It's a very fast weapon, so it's interesting to put on a merc just simply for that purpose. This is an ethereal breastplate, so ethereal breastplates are nice on mercs because they do not take durability damage. If I were to wear it on myself, that would be an issue. And let's go ahead and give myself some more crap. What do I got? I didn't put any armor on me. That's okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and assign our points. We're going to go ahead and dump everything else into vitality. Now, the reason why you're dumping pretty much all the rest of your stats into vitality is because you need to take the hits. if I have to say it any other way, you need to take the hits. If you can't take the hits, then you're going to die. And to be able to take the hits, you're going to have enough HP so that when somebody tries to hit you, you don't instantly die. So the general idea is to have a large enough cushion of health so that when they do actually hit you, you're fine. Alright, so let's go over some simple builds for Paladin. And we'll talk about them as we go along. So one of the things about Diablo II Lord of Destruction and Diablo II Resurrected when it comes out is that there are synergies. Alright. So as you can see here, Vengeance has Resist Cold, Resist Fire, Resist Lightning, and Salvation as its synergies. That is actually 4 different synergies. So if you were to build Vengeance, you would want to go over here and build Resist Fire, Resist Cold, and Resist Lightning. Now, one of the benefits of building Resist Fire, Resist Cold, and Resist Lightning is that every 2 points that you put into one of these will increase your maximum resistances by 1. Alright, so the cap of all resistances is 75. And every time you put 2 points, for instance, you get 76, 77, 78, 79, etc. up to 85%. Because when you cap it at level 20 divided by 2, 10. So plus 75 plus 10. So you're getting 85% on your cap to fire resistance. Now, there are other items in the game which will actually increase your maximum resistance. I don't have one of those on me right this second. Although I thought I had put it on there. But this shield right here is actually specifically made for resistances. It's actually just a buttload of resistances. Ral Ort Tal is a very easy way that you can solve your resistance problem very early on in the game. It's cheap. You're going to find these runes just about everywhere. You will definitely be able to get a Ral, an Ort, and a Tal. Those are certainly easy to come by. And they have to be put in that order, of course, so Ral or Tatal. Otherwise, you could also do a Rhyme Shield. It doesn't have as much resistances as the Ancient's Pledge, but it does have plus 25. Now, apart from resistances, the Vengeance build is good simply because it allows you to do elemental damage with all 3 elements. So when you get to Hell difficulty, you're not having so much of an issue with dealing damage to targets that are immune. So for instance, in Hell, you might come across a monster that's lightning and fire immune. Well, you have lightning, fire, and cold, so you're all right. Or you might come across a monster that's cold and physical immune. Well, you still have the other 2, So basically what this does is it kind of makes you a little foolproof in killing things because you have a damage spectrum which covers all immunities. In normal difficulty, you don't have to worry about that, but as you progress from normal to nightmare, and then nightmare to hell difficulty, you'll find that the monsters do have a significant amount of immunities. Now, there are certain skills that I would recommend that you put at least 1 point in. If you ever intend to wear shield on your paladin, I would recommend that you grab Holy Shield. Holy Shield is a very easy skill to use. It lasts for a pretty long duration, and just in general, it's just a great one to put on. And I have no mana, because I have nothing that gives me mana. Nothing. I don't have anything that gives me mana here. 15 to mana. Kind of sucky, but still can't cast it. So this is one of the issues with your energy pool, and it might be the bare minimum reason why you might plink a couple points into energy. It's so you actually have enough mana to cast a spell. If the spell costs, for instance, what this one does, which is 35 mana, I don't have enough mana to actually cast it, which is quite sad. And I don't have any equipment on me that will allow me to cast it.
Oh, hi there.
I'll see if I can find anything to slap on. Just slap it on. What's up, Gahid?
You again. Since the rogues have been moving back into their
80 to life. It's not what I need. There you go. 20 to mana. So as you can see, it makes your shield into this holy light shield, and it increases your defense bonus from the shield. It also increases your successful blocking by 14%. So your shield, for instance, has just higher blocking in general. This one has a chance to block of 75%, and I have a 75% chance to block. So both of those things are very good. Now, moving on, like I said, I would definitely at least put 1 point in Holy Shield. Another skill that you would definitely want to at least put 1 point in is Salvation. It can come in handy in very dangerous situations, especially if you're in groups, where your group is just not quite up to par in resistances. This especially comes in handy in Hell difficulty, where in Hell difficulty you have negative 70 to all resistances. All right, so definitely put some points, at least 1 point into Salvation, just so you have that as a utilitarian skill. Alright, so if you do happen to build Vengeance, the other skill that you want to build is Conviction. So, Vengeance and Conviction go together quite well. The entire purpose of Vengeance is to give you an amazing array of elemental damage, and the entire point of Conviction is to make sure that that elemental damage is striking its target correctly. and as strongly as possible. So think about it like if I was some sort of like god tier PvPer, right? And I had 95 to all resistances. If you came in with max level conviction on that person, their 95 to all resistances would go down the drain. So a Vengeance Paladin is going to build 20 into Vengeance. You're going to build not 20 into Conviction, but basically at the point where it starts to taper off. I think it was like level 15. Anything past that seems to be sort of wasted. It also depends on how many plus to skill points you have. And then you're going to build Resist Fire, Resist Cold, and Resist Lightning. You're actually going to put 20 points into all three of these, because that will beef up the damage of your Conviction, or sorry, your Vengeance, quite considerably. Now, Salvation doesn't. Salvation only gives you 2% to each element, so that's 6% total for each point into Salvation, which is far less than the 10% to each from each of the others. On top of that, Salvation does not give you that special magic plus to your cap resistances, so that one's going to be up to you. You can put some extra points in that, or you could use those points into something else. Like you get yourself another utilitarian skill, like Vigor. You could grab Redemption if you want to bring some of your HP back. You could also go with one of these Holy Fire, Holy Shock, or Holy Freeze. And the reason why that works out is because if you've already built 20 into all of these actually give synergies to these. So as a Vengeance Paladin, you have the ability to build Holy Shock, Holy Freeze, or Holy Fire if that's what you want. Now, keep in mind that you're going to be spending 20 points here, 20 points here, or give or take, let's say 15. So that's 35. And then 20, 20, 20, so that's 60, 70, 80, 90. It's about 95 points into those. So what's left over when you finish with your Vengeance build could be put into one of these just for fun, or you could build Holy Shield. Holy Shield might be fun. You could also build Charge, Smite. It's really up to you. Another build that you can do is a Zeal build. So Zeal is a purely physical, and Zeal actually gets damage from sacrifice. So if you were going to build Zeal, you could max out Zeal, and then also max out sacrifice. And by doing that, you would end up with a 200% bonus, 336% bonus on your damage, and Zeal is going to be quite fast. I would recommend that if you do build a Zeal build, the next thing you build is fanaticism. Fanaticism and Zeal go together extremely well. So let me just opt to a slightly less difficult area since I am not properly geared. And I did give him all the waypoints. These are super cheated characters, by the way, and I have no intention of actually playing these. They are strictly for these videos. Now, with a Zeal character, your goal is to build attack speed so that you're attacking as fast as you possibly can. Alright? That's actually your goal. And you really want to get some Crushing Blow, because Crushing Blow is going to help you exceedingly well, because essentially think about it like you're dealing that percentage-based damage we were talking about earlier as quickly as humanly possible to as many targets as humanly possible. And this is helpful because monsters have a lot of hit points. And if you can get their health down to what I would consider a manageable level, you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Alright, so let's talk about some other builds. This video is all about Paladins, by the way, and no other character. So, other builds. You can build a Paladin which is based off of one of the Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, and Holy Shock auras. In fact, you can do any of the three. These are very interesting builds because they apply elemental damage directly to your weapon. They're also very easy to do as well. So one of the things I'll show you right off the bat is the number of points. So for instance, let's say you were to build a Tesla din. That's what this, I believe that's what people call it. So this is a Holy Shockadin. Holy Shock receives bonuses from Resist Lightning and Salvation. Okay, so that's 20 points in Holy Shock, 20 points in Resist Lightning. That's only 40 points, and you've already got a viable build. You're going to be dealing out lots of damage from your Holy Freeze. It's going to be tons of cold damage, and you're going to be dealing out lots of lightning damage extra because you have your Resist Lightning in there. Now, granted, you have to run the Holy Shock aura, and this becomes a little bit of an issue, but you need some way to apply that damage, and that damage can be applied in many different ways. You can apply the damage with a bow if you want to. You can apply the damage with a sword, a two-handed weapon. But what I would recommend is something fast. The faster, the better. Because think about it like this. The amount of cold damage that's being added to your attack is the same if your weapon is fast or slow. So if your weapon is slow and you can hit once every 3 seconds, you're dealing 1,000 damage. If your weapon is fast and you can hit 3 times in 3 seconds, you're dealing 3,000 damage. So when it comes to Holy Shock, Holy Freeze, and Holy Fire, think about faster is better. All right. So right off the bat, what would you do? Well, you'd probably go with Zeal. Although theoretically you could also go with Charge. You could theoretically go with Smite. All of these are viable builds. Zeal is a very interesting one with Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, and Holy Shock because of how fast it hits. So your goal, again, would be sort of like a fanaticism paladin. However, you would be running your offensive aura. So, for instance, you have your Holy Freeze up. You would pull out your Zeal weapon, and that ice damage would be added directly to your Zeal. Now, let me go ahead and do something really quickly here. So what I want to do is I kind of want to show you what the maximum damage is on these abilities. So to do this, I'm going to very quickly give him enough points so that he can max out all his skills. Or, you know what, even easier, I'll just set all his skills to 20. He can be OP. Alright, so now he has level 20 on every skill, and you'll notice that he does 998 to 1025 Holy Freeze damage. He also has Holy Shock is 1 to 3,931, very, very large range there. And then he also has 643 to 714 on the Holy Fire. So these are interesting abilities to build a character on. You're obviously not going to be able to rely on them totally, because as I was talking about earlier, you only need 20 and 20. So one of the easiest things to do here is to build, if you're building a Holy Shockadin, you can also build a Holy Freezadin. Or you could build a Holy Fireadin also. So you could switch back and forth between two elements. Another interesting way that you could build one of these auras is you can build a Vengeance Adin. So normally a Vengeance Adin is going to build Vengeance and Conviction. But in this case, what you would do is you would use the synergies from Holy Freeze or Holy Shock or Holy Fire, and you would also use the synergies from Vengeance. So you would still put 20 points into Vengeance. You would still put 20 points into Holy Freeze, Holy Shock, or Holy Fire. And then you would put the corresponding points into these to beef up Holy Freeze, which in turn also beefs up Vengeance, because the synergies are kind of linked together. So you can sort of build it that way if you want to. Another way to build this character, or a Paladin, would be a Hammerdin. Like I told you earlier, Hammerdins only gain damage from concentration. And here's our hammers. And let's go outside real quick so I can show you something about Hammerdins. So Hammerdins do actually amazing damage, and it's technically magic damage. And the majority of monsters in the game are not magic resistant or magic immune. So you actually deal amazing amounts of damage. That was amazing. So you actually deal a pretty good amount of damage with magic. Especially the magic hammers. As you can see, they're about 1,293 to 320. But with concentration, they're 3,500 to 3,500. It's fairly stable. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and cast our hammers. And you'll notice that the hammers just sort of spin around. They just spin. And you can't really target them. You kind of have to stand next to the person that you want to hit. So it is kind of a downside of the hammers. The good thing about the hammers, though, is that the hammers are not very gear dependent. So you can build Blessed Hammer and Concentration together. And then, of course, you can also build Blessed Aim and Vigor to beef up the damage of Blessed Hammer. And you can be a naked Hammerdin, and you can still kill lots of things. Of course, you know, you're going to have a little bit more trouble staying alive. But naked you can be. That's one of the reasons why Hammerdins, along with sorceresses, can actually make very good magic find characters. Now, granted, sorceresses have teleport, and paladins don't. So that's really up to you. You can also make a Fist of the Heavens Adin, which is a very odd build. But Fist of the Heavens actually does a considerable amount of damage at max, with 1,620 to 1,740. And that's something that you are going to want to combine with Conviction. So, for instance, it says that I do 1,600 to 1,700, but you'll see that I can pretty much one-shot these guys thanks to Conviction. Now, granted, it's a very high mana cost skill at 25, so you're going to have to find some way to allow your mana to restore. As I was talking about earlier, you can use Redemption. Redemption will suck the corpses up nearby and allow you to be able to continue. Alright, so Fist of the Heavens is a very odd build for Paladins because it makes you a very far back sort of passive Paladin. It also has these little holy bolts that come out which deal holy damage to undead enemies. Not exactly very good to build because the majority of the monsters in the game are not undead. But for those monsters that are undead, it will definitely help. And let's see here. Thorns used to be amazing back in the day, but Thorns has actually become quite meh these days. In Hell difficulty, Thorns is actually very, very, very poor. It doesn't really do much of anything. On top of that, the monster has to actually hit you. So if you have rather high defense or blocking, the Thorns is not going to do anything either. And as you can see here, he's been swinging at me for quite some time. He's only hit me once. And this is in Nightmare difficulty. In Hell difficulty, Thorns becomes even more ineffective due to the very high physical damage resistances from, you know, just standard. I believe in Hell it's like 50 to 75% standard physical resistance, which makes physical damage extremely difficult to kill things with, which is why most characters end up going with some form of elemental. We also have Charge, and Charge is a very interesting ability, and you can build an entire character around Charge. You can also use Charge without having anyone nearby to charge at, which is handy. Let's let's go ahead and bring up a aura. So with charge, we would probably be more likely to use concentration, just simply because charge is not a speed attack. It's more of a massive amount of damage. Well, fanaticism does have 373. Then we also have might, which is 230. Well, let's go ahead and use fanaticism since it seems to have a tiny bit more. A charge is always a very fun one for PvP, I think, because it helps you close those gaps very quickly. You can also use it to catch up. Now, granted, when you're right on a target, it doesn't really, you don't really run at the target anymore. You just kind of stand there and attack. But as you can see, it's 1,375% extra damage. It's all physical, so an interesting ability nonetheless. It could be tagged up with Holy Shock, for instance, and then you would have a huge shock damage attack added to your charge. Of course, my shock is so high level at this point that I'm just murdering monsters within range, because Holy Shock has a 1 to 655 damage just aura effect. So it just deals out damage constantly to all targets nearby. Another interesting way to build paladins is, let's see here. Sacrifice, that's right. Sacrifice. That's the one that I have not talked about yet. Actually, I haven't talked about smite yet either.
I need a key.
So sacrifice is an interesting ability because it pulls from your health pool instead of your mana pool. You damage yourself by 8% every single time you use sacrifice. And when it's maxed out, it actually does a pretty significant amount of damage. There actually is such a thing as a sacrifice-it-in. And as you sacrifice, you make blood spots all over the ground because you're literally sacrificing your health for damage. It's very interesting. You don't need mana restore, obviously, with sacrifice, because you're taking your health away instead of your mana. And then we have smite. So smite is an interesting one. Smite goes off the damage of your shield. So if you take a look at your inventory, you'll see that your shield says 1 to 5 smite damage. And on top of that, skills like Holy Shock don't add to smite. So why would smite be a good thing to build? Well, the thing about smite is smite stuns the target, and it also tends to be completely like bypassing of all the resistances on a target. It also is affected by Holy Shield. So for instance, we're going to cast Holy Shield and it's going to up our smite damage. So as a smiter, you're going to want to completely beef out Holy Shield, just simply because of how it affects your smite. Will y'all back off of me, sons? I'm gonna go on from me. Chantal. So if you're going to build smite, you make sure you build Holy Shield, which is going to increase that damage. There are also items in the game which give specifically to your damage. They're very interesting items, because what they are is they don't give damage like to your weapon or damage to your spells. They just specifically give you damage. And this specific damage that they give you actually does also affect smite. Now, obviously, getting a good shield that has a high smite damage in the first place is going to make things easier. There are some very specific shields that have very high smite damage.
Oh, hi there. It's
And those are things like... Let's see if I can find one to show you.
back.
I never have any shields when I need them to have shields, I swear. Specifically, though, it is like the bone shield, the spiked shields. Kind of like, it kind of makes sense because the shields that in particular would have an excessive amount of smite damage are rather obvious. Let's see if I can gamble for one from my girl here. She usually has a spike shield if you go in here enough times. So as you can see here, the smite damage on this one is 75 to 95, whereas the smite damage on this one is 58 to 60. It's because this has a much higher base. And this is only a normal difficulty spike shield. There are much higher level spike shields besides those. So for instance, there's the Nightmare version, and then there's also the Hell version. And there are several other shields that have rather high smite damage. Like for instance, the Paladin himself has a bunch of things like the heraldic shields, the crown shields, and stuff like that, which are specifically for the Paladin, and those also have different varying levels of smite damage. So you're gonna kind of find a shield that has the smite damage and the faster blocking and the percentage that you want, so that you can get in there and really dish it out. Now, because smite has that nice 4.4 second stun at level 20, it becomes very, very useful. 4.4 second stun can pretty much just get you a lock on 2, sometimes even 3 targets. As you can see, you can just sort of spam your smite around and lock all the targets into a stun lock. This is one of the reasons why smiters are actually very popular, is because of that ability to stun lock things. Now, of course, I don't have the mana here to actually maintain my smiting. I don't have any mana steal either. So, you may want to tag smite with something else, like Zeal, just so you can restore some mana, or, redemption, or something like that. Whatever it is that you can come up with as an answer, to your mana issues. Maybe you want to bring it with charge. Where you can charge stuff. Of course, I don't have the mana or health to do anything here. Let's just go ahead and bring this out. Holy Freeze is amazing because of how much it slows targets down by. It's one of the reasons I've always loved it. But Holy Freeze can also be obtained from mercenaries. The Act 2 mercenaries have Holy Freeze, and it's one of the most favorite mercenaries out there because of it. Also, Holy Freeze is just amazing because you can walk around town, or like lower level areas. Like for instance, let's say for instance I wanted to go to like normal, and I was just trying to help somebody run something like maybe in like Canyon of the Magi, and I'm walking around in Canyon of the Magi, and I'm dealing damage to everything nearby. Everything nearby is just dying because of my 199 to 205 cold damage on everything nearby. Just instant deaths. Obviously, it's a tick, so it's like 1, 2, 3 tick, 1, 2, 3 tick, and in hell difficulty when you're fighting hell monsters, it's not going to be anything. But I always think it's so funny to just to watch all the monsters just get murdered as you run around like a normal difficulty mode. Go into like a tomb of Tal Rasha or something and walk into where all the skeletons are, and you just see everything fall down. I'm gonna die. I got 2 HP left. Hold on. Redemption! So I think I've covered the basics. Obviously, I have not gone over like how specifically to build your character, like what equipment you should be using, because I feel like that's an open-ended argument, and you should take your time and figure that out for yourself. So this is pretty much the end of the Paladin introduction guide. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them down in the comments below. With Diablo II Resurrected coming out, it's just an amazing time to be playing some Diablo 2. And I freaking love it. Like, I really, really love it. I just do. Anyway, until next time.
He's a little bully. He's a little bully, aren't you? That's a cute little bully.